Hello, and welcome to Finish My Story, where we try to tell narratively complex stories one line at a time. Oh, crap. We're here in the room.
All right, before we start, I just want to shout out to that awesome theme music. It's just awesome. Thanks a lot to Fernando who wrote it. He's amazing composer.
You can find his name in our episode description.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bore you with all the details. We're talking about us now.
Yeah. Fuck you, Fernando.
Oh,
I'm kidding. We love you. The music is so great. Well, that's a weird way to start. Anyway, who are we? Thanks for that shout out, John. Who are we? I'm Peter. I'm an improv actor.
I'm Jonathan. I'm a screenwriter and comedian.
I'm Les. I'm a storyteller.
Yeah, and what we try to do here, as you may have heard earlier or in our past episodes, is tell narratively complex stories.
One line
at a time.
We'll start with a famous line from literature, film, or radio. Only those three. And then we'll go off from there. It'll go off the rails. Before we get into it and talk more about our story, we got to talk about what's on our minds narratively. We'll start with you, Les, because Les has been doing something fun.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so I decided, since, this is the Christmas season, I decided to do something a little wacky. So what I decided to do is every day from now until Christmas, I've decided to watch one movie from either the Hallmark Channel or Lifetime.
Les, what kind of bet did you lose to have to do this?
Oh, no, this is just, I figured that, with the things going on in the news, with the tax issues and the presidential issues and yada da da, I decided to do something just to cheer myself up a little bit.
How's it going?
Oh my God, okay. I've seen some wacky movies. All right, this is what I've learned. Okay, Candace Cameron Bure or Lacey Chabert are real big Christmas movie stars.
Really?
Yes. Okay. Every movie. Okay, there's a white woman with a sassy black friend in every one of them.
We know that makes good narrative.
Yeah,
but then I saw one where there was a black protagonist and she had a sassy white friend.
Oh,
so see,
switching it
it
up.
That's so fresh.
Right? And
representation
at the
matters.
end of these movies, everybody learns the meaning of Christmas, and then they hook up with like a hunky guy and everyone's happy.
What is the meaning of Christmas, Les?
Hooking up with a hunky guy.
It's different in every movie. They don't really know.
No, I think he's got a good point. The meaning of Christmas is hooking up with a hunky guy.
Because this is the story. This is the story how it goes. Okay, girl has a high-powered job and she's kind of a bitch, right? Yeah. Girl either loses the job or gets dumped by the boyfriend, so she has to move back home to her small town.
Classic, hilarious, inciting incident.
So then she's in her small town,
yep.
Hijinks ensue, she becomes nicer, and then she hooks up with the hunky guy, and everybody's happy.
Ooh. That sounds like a Finish My Story.
It sounds like she changes a lot of her personality to hook up with a hunky dude.
No, she doesn't. It's just that, she's
personal growth,
bitter.
John.
She's bitter, she's angry.
And now she's better and she loves Christmas, John.
Because of Christmas.
John.
And love.
These movies have scrambled your brain. I don't know how you get so much joy from it when, like, I watch a movie like that and it makes me physically pull my hair out.
Well, you need to learn the meaning of Christmas,
John.
Well,
John.
As a Jew, I agree with you.
Oh, well, that's true. Okay. Well, no, there's Hanukkah ones too.
Oh yeah, Lacey Chabert's Jewish, isn't she?
Do they go like under
the Jew in Mean Girls?
Are they like the same trajectory of?
Yes.
Like they hold a high position at a bank, and then they get fired because they miss some detail.
By the way, it's never a bank. It's always advertising.
No, but in the Jewish version, it's a bank.
And John can say that because 2/3 of this podcast is Jewish. I just realized that.
Yeah, hey.
High percentage.
The minorities are the majorities.
Right?
Bam! Take that, white America. John, what have you been reading or watching?
Wow, you showed America, Peter. I have been I've been watching a lot of older movies. Last week I told you I watched Godfather Part 2 for the first time.
Yeah. He's a fool.
Yes, we've confirmed that on the last podcast that I'm a fool. I watched this older movie called Two for the Road. With Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
It's an amazing movie. Audrey Hepburn is awesome. Yeah, she's great. Albert Finney is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing I ever saw him in was Big Fish, which is really
a strange one.
Right. To start your Albert Finney journey with that one.
Yeah, maybe Jason Bourne, whatever those. But he's amazing.
Yes.
She is amazing. The writing in that movie is so incredible. It has the 3 different storylines and passes back and forth. It might be 4 different storylines. Awesome movie. What about you, Peter? What have you been watching, listening, getting your head into?
I recently went to San Francisco, see a good friend of mine. We talked about The Room last week. We did a whole The Room tour, and then we went to see The Disaster Artist, of course, the movie about the making of The Room.
That's almost as confusing as
The Room.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Great job, James Franco. They filmed in the theater that Les and I met, and also where we are right now. We're out of the West Hollywood Library. Take that, lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual area. They did film right in here. But I watched that, and I've been rereading the book. I'd read it before by Greg Sestero because how much I love The Room and how crazy the whole thing in Tommy Wiseau is. So hopefully our Finish My Story podcasts aren't as bad as The Room is.
I would hope not.
I realized he really thought he was making something special, and we do too here. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, these guys are terrible, I'm sorry, but hey, at least you get enjoyment out of it, because I got enjoyment out of The Room.
They filmed a part of Disaster Artist in this theater?
Yeah.
Is that where they have the...
very opening scene. You'll see it.
Huh.
Isn't that magical?
Wow, so we're...
Theater 68.
Mm-hmm.
That's our first official shout out. Anyway, we're gonna we got to get into it, man. We've been talking, we've been chatting, we've been learning about Hallmark movies, and it's time to talk about Finish My Story. So again, as I said, one line at a time stories, but we have some special things that we do here. First off, we have the story pause, which works a little something like this. I'm telling a story, everything's going great, that's my line.
Story pause.
What? Why do you story pause it?
We're going to take a little break to either clarify what you said or make fun of what you said or just sort of get everyone on the same page.
Yeah.
And then when we want to get back into the story...
What do we say?
Story resume.
Or resume story.
Thank you, Peter.
We introduced it last week, and it's something called a story punishment. John, you got punished last week.
I got punished.
It was very embarrassing.
I did a bad
you had to
thing.
do a little 30-second glow stick dance. You can watch it on our Instagram and our Facebook. And that's how you can vote on the punishment for next week. What we're going to be doing with the story punishment, we're going to be listening to each other and telling a story as we always do. But let's say I'm telling a story and I'm like, and her name was, oh crap, I forgot her name.
It's a very literal example from last week.
Yeah.
If at any point we get a detail wrong in the story that makes it more confusing to follow along with, or if we just get a detail wrong, we punish that person.
We bing them. Bing!
Bing.
Bang!
And the person with the most bings at the end of the week will be punished. You can vote on that punishment on our social media platforms. Finish My Story Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and Finish Story Cast on Twitter. I realized I said them wrong last week, which probably wasn't great.
That's really bad.
Yeah, but you can watch John get punished. It's hilarious. I really enjoyed it. And you can vote on this week. Speaking of this week, because John is going to start us off, and he's watching old movies. He just watched The Godfather 2. I figured let's do something mob-related, huh?
I mean, on top of the fact, it's a great movie on its own.
Great movie.
Great movie.
We, of course, are talking about...
Air Gangsters.
That's right.
It's the sequel to Air Bud, where the dogs play gangsters.
Yeah, Air Bud gets to the later stages of his life, realizes that he can't play sports anymore. Just the compounding injuries of his knees and his brain. He's got the CTE. Sorry, Roger Goodell, you're a jerk, but it's true. No, we're doing a quote from the classic movie Goodfellas.
Oh. All right. I think does someone need to say anything before we get rolling? That was a long silence of no. Thank you for responding to this audio medium.
Silent agreement.
Maybe I was asking the listener. You guys have anything to say before we get started? Tell us now.
It's good of you to always ask the listener, because you never know, at one point they might just jump out and say something.
It's being polite.
I'm being polite. Wow, that was a great point, listener.
You don't say.
You don't say.
You didn't say.
All right, John, take us away.
All right, let's get into it. The order that we are going to be going in.
Oh, yeah,
this
what's
week,
the order?
I will be delivering the line, and then I will be passing it off to Peter.
Okay.
And then to Les.
Okay.
And then it'll come back to me.
Then what?
And then it'll go to Peter again.
Okay.
And then he'll say a line, and then it'll go to Les.
Les.
And then it'll come back to me.
Got it.
What happens after that? Where does it go to after
Then
that?
I think it goes to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, okay, we got it. We're in on this.
Let's roll.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Read Jim's epitaph on his tombstone.
Everyone was sad at Jim's funeral.
But the saddest person at the funeral was his son, Gregory.
Gregory was a young man of about 35 who really loved and looked up to his father, and everything his father did brought him joy and happiness.
And even though his father was a gangster, Gregory didn't care.
He only saw the good things of being a gangster. The money, the power, the women, even when his father was cheating on his mother. It all seemed like something he too wanted to do.
But he didn't really have the appetite for it, for hurting people, for maiming people. So he had started his own business as a spiritual gangster.
People would call him up on the phone. He would talk with them. He would pray with them. And he would put a hit out on their souls for good.
In the same way that karma always bites back, spiritual hits always go through.
And Gregory was the most successful spiritual gangster / hitman that had ever been.
Gregory's home base was in Century City.
The most spiritual part of Los Angeles.
You see, Century City is a city built up around the Fox lot, 20th Century Fox. And if we know anything about the Fox Corporation, it's that it is a very spiritual and not money-grubbing at all soulless corporation.
But Gregory felt that just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you have to be broke.
And he wasn't broke. He was very successful, very rich, very powerful, and he didn't have to see any of the dirty, bad gangster things his spirituality was carrying out.
So here he was at his father's funeral, tears streaming down his face, and he looked around at all the people gathered there and thought,
Wow, my father was loved.
And I hope no one here knows that my spiritual gangstertude is what got him killed.
Story pause. Ooh.
Someone's been watching The Godfather.
John just did a fist pump like Tiger Woods. I was so proud of that moment.
Don't
I'm proud of you too.
Don't tie me into Tiger Woods. I don't want that.
He invented that fist pump, so.
He also invented golf. Okay.
There you go. Fact. Story resume. Weeks earlier, Gregory had received a job to spiritually whack the head of the Marquez crime family.
The person who gave him the job told him, I have an offer for you that you can't refuse.
But I also can't tell you my name.
Okay, that sounds reasonable, Gregory said.
And if you do it, what I want you to do, there's gonna be a lot of cash for you.
Sold.
Yeah, I agreed to it already. You really don't need to keep selling me on this And I assume there'd be a lot of cash. I mean, I am the best at what I do.
So Gregory got to work arranging his spiritual hit.
He went through all the routine ritualitude. Burned the sage, sat at his desk with his crystal ball, and got to hitting.
So he put his hand on the crystal ball, and then his left hand on the other crystals scattered around his desk, turned them right to left, and as he did said, Marquez, 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 Julio Marquez!
And the crystal balls said, "Sí, Julio Marquez."
Gregory inquisitively looked at the crystal ball that spoke to him in Spanish, and he thought, multilingual.
When I bought this from the crystal store, I thought it was only English. All right, that means I can put some hits out on some people in China too. Spiritual hits, of course.
But then Gregory realized that he needed to focus on the task at hand. But he didn't know who was he supposed to spiritually whack.
And the crystal ball re-answered to him, Julio Marquez. You are trying to kill Julio Marquez.
Oh, that's right. I must have forgotten when I got all tied up in the... Anyway, yes, so Julio Marquez, hands there, crystals are turned. That's about all I have to do, right? Yes, it is.
So then Gregory asked, "Donde está Julio Marquez?" Which means, where is Julio Marquez in English?
The crystal ball pulsated with blue light and said back, No sé.
But do you really need to know that information? The hit is complete. You've done your job.
So since this was the only hit of the day, Greg decided to relax.
And unbeknownst to Gregory, since there was no Julio Marquez, the spirit would need to find another person to hit.
As Gregory relaxed in his easy chair, the spirit flew out the window, looking for the last person Gregory had spoken with.
Ooga chaka, ooga, ooga, ooga chaka, ooga, 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 ooga chaka, said the spirit as it flew looking for that person.
Story pause. The spirit seems to love Redbone's 1970s hit "Hooked on a Feeling."
Why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it?
It's like that's all. That's the whole point of the story pause is to. I don't even know if that was Redbone. I think I'm thinking of a different movie. Different. I think I'm thinking of a different artist. Anyway,
Movie? What are you talking
you know,
movie?
I think.
And then they played it on
No,
Ally
it's Blue
McBeal.
Suede. It's Blue Suede. It's Blue Suede.
I know, I hear it now, and it just has the connotation of Guardians.
Yeah, well, that's why I got it confused. Blue Suede's classic. Story resume.
Classic, how could you forget?
Story resume.
Unfortunately for Gregory and his father, Gregory was a great son and would talk to his father on the phone nearly every day.
So the spirit whizzed through the air, looking for Gregory's father, Jim. I can find him, ooga chaka, Jim, 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 ooga chaka, Jim, 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 Jim.
Now, Jim was driving down Hollywood Boulevard in his Rolls Royce.
And with sparing you the details of the grisly, gruesome death, we return back to the funeral.
So there he was, tears streaming down his face, looking around at all of the people who loved his father, wondering if they truly loved him or if they were just people who wanted to be seen.
All of a sudden, the doors bursted open, and a sexy woman walked in and said, "Hello, I'm Buffy, the spiritual hitter slayer."
I'm gonna bing you right now. We're outside at the grave site.
Yeah.
And the stone.
Yeah.
What doors burst open?
Of the cemetery.
What?
No, that's a big. They're outside.
They're
That's an
outside.
outdoor funeral.
All right.
I appreciate that he was. They were definitely at an outdoor funeral. All right.
Okay.
It's an indoor astroturf
Okay.
graveyard.
Unbing.
Everyone at the funeral looked in her direction, wondering, is this somebody that used to work for Jim?
And then one of them yelled, "Hey, are you somebody who used to work for Jim?"
No, I didn't work for Jim. I work for the Spiritual Slayer Society.
Gregory attempted to keep his eyes away from her in fear that she might recognize him.
And I'm here because I think a spiritual hit was put out on this poor man.
And I sense that it came from you. And she points at Gregory.
Gregory held his hands up to his chest, like he was feigning some sort of bad audition. Me?
Why, yes, I am a spiritual hitman. Everyone knows this. You can call me out at my father's funeral full of real gangsters and hitmen and see how that goes for you. But I am not responsible for my father's death, he said, as a bead of sweat rolled down his forehead.
Don't piss on me and tell me that it's raining. I know a spiritual hitter when I see one, she said.
The old-timey gangsters at the funeral all looked at Gregory. You mean to tell me that you went back against your father's wishes and became a spiritual hitman?
You see, despite the fact that Gregory was the most successful, well-known spiritual gangster/hitman in the entire world, his father had long argued that it was not a profession worth taking up, and forbade Gregory from following it.
It was actually a conflict of interest. You see, his father put out real hits against people. Gregory put out spiritual hits against people. And it just didn't jibe.
As much as Gregory loved his father, he felt that his father forbade him from the profession so that he wouldn't take away his own business.
Gregory would argue, "Father," which he called his father, "this is a spiritual hit business. Most people don't die from this. They get bad karma, and then accidents happen, and they lose their money, and their loves break up with them. This is not a conflict of interest. You want to kill people, you can still kill people." But his father wouldn't listen.
And so Gregory agreed not to do spiritual hits, but he lied to his father.
Perhaps this was the reason why Gregory would call his father so often, he thought. It could have been out of guilt, or something. But who really calls their father every day on the phone?
And so the crowd of old-timey gangsters said, Wait a minute, you went against your father's wishes and you are now a hitman? And now your father is dead? That sounds mighty suspicious, eh?
Buffy looked at the gangsters and said, "You stay away from him. He's mine. This is spiritual business."
If there was one thing old-timey gangsters knew, it's that if someone called out a hit specifically on someone, they'd clear the way.
So instead of whipping out their Gatling guns, which, why do they still have? I mean, it's 2017. They stepped aside and let Buffy confront Gregory.
Gregory, I see hit auras. That means if you put a hit on someone, I see an aura around you. And that's what I'm seeing coming from you right now. A hit aura.
Why are you explaining this to me? I know all of the rules of the hit auras. I'm very well versed in this whole thing. It's my job.
Like I said, I'm a hitman. I have no qualms about it. I wish these people here didn't know, but I am one. And yeah, I told you that already. I agree. Stop telling me things I know. Anyway, yes, I put out a hit on someone. It wasn't my father. I love my father dearly. I put out a hit on Julio Marquez.
Story pause. Where we try to tell stories one line at a time.
Here's a run-on sentence.
Resume story.
So then Buffy looked at him and said, "Well, if you put a hit out on Julio Marquez, why did your father die and not Julio Marquez?"
Gregory leaned forward, curious. Julio Marquez isn't dead?
I didn't expect him to be dead, but I assumed some sort of bad karma or juju would come. So he's not dead, and I saw his wife the other day, and they seem perfectly happy, and he hasn't had any major accident. What's going on?
The energy was never directed towards Julio Marquez.
Because there is no Julio Marquez.
What? There's no Julio Marquez? Huh?
That's right. There is no Julio Marquez. So, fess up. What's going on?
Gregory scanned the other people at the funeral and recognized somebody whom he'd met before. Someone with a ghostly voice who would offer people things that they couldn't refuse.
If there's no Julio Marquez, then I think that man there, whose name is Frank Frangio, is responsible.
Frank Frangio heard his name being said out loud and looked startled.
He gave a quick wave and smile and pretended like nothing was wrong, but then Frank Frangio ran away.
As fast as he could for an old man, which wasn't very fast.
Buffy ran and she tackled Frank Frangio to the ground.
Gregory approached the struggling couple at the floor and stood over them. "You've got a lot of explaining to do,
Mr. Frangio."
Listen, you son of a bitch. I knew that doing this would destroy you and your idiot father.
It all goes back to that first day you started your spiritual hitting.
It was the first day Gregory started his spiritual hitting, and he put a sign on a window in his office that said, Gregory Jimangary, spiritual gangster / hitman.
Right when he put up the sign, a young lady entered, Francesca Faggio.
Can I story pause myself because I need to point out something?
What?
The name I came up with, Jimangary, is like Jim and Gary, and I didn't even realize.
Jimangary?
It's like Jim and Gary.
Well,
I never realized that till I said it, and I can't stop hearing it. So
horrible name.
horrible name. We hadn't given them the last name yet, so
No, we didn't.
anyway, story resume.
Jimangary.
Jimangary.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just, oh god. Story resume.
Gregory led Francesca into his point of office and sat her down in front of the crystal ball and crystals.
Miss Frangio, welcome to my new spiritual gangster business. What can I do for you? You seem like a very nice woman.
You know, my father's name is Frank, and I want to use these crystals to give him a boost of energy.
I don't really do that here, but I could bring him some sort of harm.
All right, I'm here. Why not?
Gregory started to concentrate, but since this was the first time he had ever done this, he wasn't sure. And then Francesca said,
And died.
Gregory realized his spiritual hitting was not tuned well enough yet, and in the process of turning his crystals, he'd accidentally kicked one up into her lungs and she had choked.
and at her funeral, her father Frank vowed, I'm gonna destroy that son of a bitch.
It was Jimangary. He killed her and used Gregory to cover it up. I know it.
We gangsters are always at each other's throats, and even though we're in an agreement right now, it hasn't been long since someone had a horse head in the bed.
And then he exercised the one gangster rule. You don't get back at the person, you get back at them through their family.
And then you kill the person.
So he called up Gregory's fledgling business, requested a hit on Julio Marquez, knowing there was no Julio Marquez, and waited for the chaos to ensue.
So in the present, Buffy looked down at Frank and said,
That was pretty smart.
Gregory had never known Buffy to compliment people, and he knew something was amiss.
So, he very quickly looked at the two on the ground, grabbed his to-go crystal ball that he always kept in his pocket, and searched for the truth.
One of these people is a doppelganger.
What?
The crystal ball said.
Story pause. Doppelganger, you mean like they look like somebody else, or they're in imposter.
Like, they look like someone else, but it's like, but for nefarious reasons.
Okay. Resume story. Or story resume. Buffy helped the old gangster to his feet, and the three of them stood looking at each other, with the crystal ball looking and judging the three of them.
And as Gregory looked at the other two, Buffy started to look like someone else. Cut off her hair, dye it black, and it was no longer Buffy, the spiritual hit slayer. It was now
Francesca.
Francesca, you're alive, Gregory said.
What? How did you know it was me? Oh, shit, I said me.
Gregory looked at Francesca and said, "Why would you do this to me?"
Family? I mean business. Definitely not family. I'm not related to any gangsters here. Business.
You can stop the ruse, Gregory said. I know it's you, Francesca Frangio. You're standing there next to your father. The resemblance is uncanny. I thought you were dead. Explain this to me.
She looked very angry.
Well, damn it, that's your spiritual gangster business was going to take away from my father's real gangster business, and I couldn't let that happen.
So you admit it was you who killed my father?
And also, how many times do I have to tell all these gangsters here? Spiritual gangsterdom has nothing to do with real gangsterdom. It's a very, 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 very different business.
Yeah, I killed your father, and I don't believe that it's not the same business. I think that you were just doing this to cover up stuff and steal our real gangster business.
Gregory turned back to the funeral and yelled out, "Did you hear that, everyone? She admitted to killing my and everyone who had been there had left to the wake.
Okay, so you killed my father, and now I'm sure you're going to whip out a gun and you're going to make me go dig something or something like that. But I got to ask, why the elaborate ruse of pretending to be dead and then pretending to create revenge with your father? Why'd you go through so many steps instead of just doing it?
Because I'm a smart gangster.
And why would you show up to my father's funeral with me thinking that I was the one who killed him, just to clarify that I didn't kill him to clear my conscience, and then for you to admit it? Why?
Enough of that talk, she said, and whipped out her gun and pointed it. Go dig a hole.
All of a sudden, the gun was kicked out of her hand. They looked around, and it was the real Buffy.
I heard there were vampires or monsters in the area. Which one of you's gonna die first?
There is no vampires or monsters here, just some gangsters and a spiritual gangster, and then a gangster who thinks that I'm a bad spiritual gangster, and there's a lot of other shit going on, but yeah, no vampires or monsters. You can go.
Well, okay, see ya.
And the real Buffy left them, the gun lying on the ground between the three spiritual gangster, and other spiritual gangster wannabe who doesn't understand how spiritual gangster works, but she's the daughter of an actual gangster.
Gregory lunged for the gun and was able to get a hand of it, and as he lifted it towards Francesca, he heard his crystal ball say, That was not the doppelganger I was talking about.
Gregory asked, well then, who is it?
Gregory didn't even need for the crystal ball to answer, and he aimed the gun at Frank.
Ah, good deduction, my son, he said. And he wiped his hand over his face, removing the makeup to reveal...
Jim!
Father, because that's what I call you. You're alive.
Yes, my son. You see, for a variety of reasons I had to fake my own death. We don't need to go into it, but I figured I'd fake my own death. And, in the meantime, also show you that I support your business. I found out about it, and I actually think you're doing a great job. I've heard you're the most successful spiritual hitman out there, and I wanted to support you.
And now that you solved this mystery, you're a great son, and you have my blessing.
The father and son embraced in a tight hug. Loving. Italian.
So wait a minute. Who is this Francesca Frangio? Is this an actress?
Why, yes! I'm an actress! How did I do?
An actress that I needed to go through this elaborate ruse in order to kill. For a reason I will explain now.
Oh, man. Bang! He shot her.
She died.
Gregory didn't understand. He got to his knees and held Francesca's now dead body in his hands, thinking, why did this actress have to die?
I can tell you're thinking, why did this actress have to die? Jim said. Well, I was hired to do a hit on her. That's my business. I think we've been over this many times. And the fake death and the coming back to life, that was all just for the fun. But yeah, I was supposed to kill her.
And you know, all of this gangsterism and death and spirituality is making me hungry. Why don't we go get some pasta?
But son, I want you to know that I saw all your tears, and I know you really love me, and you would never do anything to get in the way of my actual business.
So yeah, let's go get some pasta, and of course, one of our classic dessert dishes, a spumoni.
So they went to Damiano's, and they had spumoni and pasta and lots of red wine.
And to top it all off, they fed each other a nice big cannoli.
And as they were eating the cannoli, a song came on the jukebox. One of their favorites. Don't stop believing. And then it cut off abruptly.
The end.
Whew.
Just, okay, are you trying to say that The Sopranos ended abruptly?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. Remember that? And then it ended. And then I was like doing the show in Ohio. When it ended, I looked at the person whose house I was staying at and said, something's wrong with your cable. It went out.
I'm glad you knew where I was going with that. I wasn't sure if you watched The Sopranos.
Oh my God,
Of course.
we're gonna get into a whole like podcast about this and how I'm gonna have to like defend the ending of The Sopranos.
I'm not gonna go into it. I think they should have just left the HBO logo in the corner and it would have worked.
I was so pissed.
What?
They went to black without the HBO logo, so it looked like the TV turned off. If they had kept the logo in the corner, then you would have known it was part of the show.
I mean, would you have wanted to like executive produced by
Yes!
Splash up
I
top?
was so
no.
mad. I was
Not
so
immediately.
mad. But, like,
Anyway, we don't need to get into this. That's a pod for another time.
That's for next week.
That's for next week. In the meantime, that was a fucking weird one.
That was a weird episode.
flashbacks and flash forwards and
Yeah, I blame Two for the Road for all those flashbacks.
I think it was a complex story.
it was
you
know what?
Stories get complex.
It was narratively complex, as we say.
It was so complex that not even the main characters knew why it had to be so complex.
It was meta.
But hey, it wrapped up more than I thought it was. Once it started becoming clear that that guy was Jim. I'm glad we were all on the same page there too.
It was kind of like a Lost or a Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Or,
it's like, okay, well then now we can explain it. Because when it was just Francesca, it made no sense. Whew. It made no sense. Anyway, what did you guys learn today?
At what point were you nervous in the episode, Peter? No. What did we
guys learn? Yeah, John, what did you learn?
Oh man, again, so much. Well, the spiritual hit thing. I like how it's not about actually killing people. It's just about bringing them like bad fortune.
Yeah.
So
it's a spiritual hit.
I guess that's better. It's still like a pretty jerk profession.
Yeah.
No, man. What about you, Les? What did you learn?
I learned sometimes there are no good guys, there are no bad guys, and sometimes you have to live in the gray.
I feel like that's what every gangster movie is about.
That's how they sold the pitch for Liam Neeson's The Gray.
But also, then the movie executive said, but there has to be wolves in there too.
Well, yeah, as a metaphor.
I learned that if Buffy comes after you, just tell her that you're not a vampire or a werewolf and she'll go away.
It works.
It works.
Also, Buffy's real.
Buffy's real, guys.
And the only person who really needed to die in the story was an actress.
Well, that says something, doesn't it?
Yikes. Oh, bad time.
Well, look, Peter, it's just framing you as the bad guy because you were like, hey, Fox as a corporation isn't that bad, and then you go and you murder an actress.
Yeah.
You know, one of the good Hallmark movies I saw this weekend, one of them was an actress who lost her acting job and went home to her small town and learned the meaning of Christmas and met a hunky guy.
This is the most original story I've ever heard.
It was called 'Tis the Season of Love.
Shout out to 'Tis the Season of Love.
And the Hallmark Channel.
Hey, Hallmark Channel, if you want to sponsor us, Lunchables, I'm starting to get pissed at them. They haven't sent us any free Lunchables yet.
They sent us nothing.
I mean, there aren't a lot of people listening to this, so maybe that's why. But still.
I feel like a total chump. I'm still paying for Lunchables.
Yeah. I'm paying once every 6 years for my Lunchables, and that's too much.
Well, you need to watch the Hallmark Channel.
What is that going to...
I mean, no, he's just saying as a sponsor.
Yes.
Well, no, and you could solve that Lunchable problem.
The Hallmark Channel.
And learn the meaning of Christmas.
The Hallmark Channel. Go down the hall, make some marks, and it's a channel.
Wow, Peter.
Thank you.
Peter.
That's our sponsorship.
Peter.
Also, Panda Express. There's some rice there and stuff. And Lunchables. Meat in a circle or a square.
Is there square meat?
I don't know, maybe.
Ew.
No, it's the square cheese and the circular meat.
Well, I didn't. I don't make the slogans.
I don't make the slogans. I just say them.
They send them to me. I read them. I read that. Anything else you guys need to add before we go?
Yeah, there is something we need to address.
What's that?
Story punishment.
Story punishment.
Ugh.
There was only one Bing today.
Well, there was two, but I very generously took one back.
I think I deleted that from the episode.
There were,
or maybe I didn't. Who knows?
The editor that we have on this is really unreliable for a lot of things. So who knows? But we do have a clear loser.
It's Les.
Great.
Les loses.
So please, you get to vote on how to punish Les. It's got to be something involving a graveyard.
Oh, I like them. That'll be fun.
There'll be something involving
Maybe something with crystal balls?
Crystal balls. Yeah. And then maybe something involving a gangster or like a fake gun.
Look, we're not coming up with it on the spot. We create stories on the spot. We don't create punishments on the spot.
Gangsters, death, and balls.
Yep. just like Les. So go and find us on our social media accounts. It's Finish My Story Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. Nope, it's Finish My Story Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and Finish Story Cast on Twitter to vote. You can vote by commenting on Instagram, on the poll, on Twitter, or with your Facebook reactions. Get those votes out there. We're going to embarrass the shit out of Les.
Great. Thanks.
Help us punish Les.
Anything else?
Oh, I have one question for you, Peter. Do you validate parking?
Yes.
Okay, good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Once again, I'm Peter.
I'm Les.
And I'm John.
Have a great, I don't know if it's a day or if it's a night, but enjoy it. Enjoy the time you have.
You
left
do this
in your
every
life.
time, Peter. Just tell him to have a good one.
Goodbye.